Hello and welcome to your orientation to contextual education as you start this spring 2022 semester. I'm Wanda Stahl and I'm one of the directors of contextual education.
Hi, I'm Anastasia Kidd, and I'm the other director of contextual education. And together we are here to provide you all the information you need to start the semester right. So we want to start by talking about the ITP group practices. What is it you're going to experience while you're in the ITP groups? Well, you're going to experiencing yourself and your field placement as the content of your group. This is what your group is going to be discussing from week to week. You're going to share experiences that you're having, and you're going to explore the theological implications of your work at your site. This is about discerning your vocation. Now, your vocation is not just what you want to do. It's not just the work that you're planning to do, but also who you are and also who you're seeking to become. And so this is about peer learning. This is about being in this group and committing to this group of people and learning from one another as peers. The premises of contextual education is that it's field education, not field work. This is a nuance, but it's an important one. Students are ultimately responsible for their own experience. So this is very much your lead. You're taking the lead in this time of contextual education. Your supervisor's work focuses on listening to you, fostering your theological reflection, helping you grow in that way, deepening your self-awareness. That's their role, but you're ultimately responsible for your own experience of the education itself. Your site focuses on helping you move forward in your learning goals, which you will name as part of the process. And these relationships are very important. These relationships that you'll build between your supervisor, your site, yourself, these are incredibly important as they will be in your own ITP group as well. So your expectations on your side of things, the students have a lot of expectations on them. Again, it's your education at stake here. So you're the primary initiator in the contextual education process. It's on you. You're expected to focus your learning on further developing your ministerial or vocational identity and deepening the practice of theological reflection from week to week. You are expected to meet regularly, weekly, with your integrating theology and theory and practice, your ITP group, and you're completing your assignments in a timely and conscientious manner for ITP. You're expected to fulfill your learning agreement commitments at your site. You're expected to meet weekly with your site or theological supervisors, and you are expected to meet monthly with the internship committee where applicable. So if you have an internship committee at your site, you're expected to meet monthly with them. And you're expected to adhere to the deadlines for your learning agreements, your evaluations, for your assignments, and all of that. So these are all the expectations that are on you as you begin the semester of contextual education.
So Anastasia talked a couple of minutes ago about practices for your ITP group. I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes about practices for your contextual ed experiences as a whole. So the first essential practice is building a learning community. Your ITP group isn't the only community that you are going to be part of. You're also going to be part of a community with your supervisor and others at your sites. For those of you in congregational settings, you'll be part of community with your internship committee. And while the ITP group is your official learning classroom, all of these relationships will offer you the opportunity for learning and growth. So move into each of these relationships, being ready to learn, seeking to take responsibility for your own learning and learning how to receive feedback. So one thing I'd just like to mention, if there are particular ways in which receiving feedback works best for you, be as clear about those with your supervisor and your internship committee if you have one as you can up front. That will just help this whole process of building a learning community deepen more quickly. The second essential practice is strengthening skills of inquiry. Now, many of your sites are still, we all are, navigating the complications of this pandemic for their work. So this will make some of the learning dynamics at your site potentially more challenging, but it also could be offering you some opportunities for some learning that might not be available to you otherwise. So as you're seeking to strengthen these skills of inquiry, you can do that by observing. What can you learn from a physical setting of your site, as well as about its values and its commitments? What did you notice? What do you notice about the relational dynamics that are present amongst the persons at your site? And what can you learn for those of you who might be doing work remotely from your site's website or other online engagement? A second practice for strengthening your skills of inquiry is listening. To practice curiosity, to be open to learning as you listen to others, to seek out conversations with others who might be helpful partners for you in learning more about the site. A third practice is gathering. Gathering information about the history of your site or other information where appropriate so that you can get a better sense of its broader context. And then finally, interpreting. To see if over time you can observe patterns at your site, to look for other sources of information that can help you understand some of the pieces that might be unclear or confusing to you about the way your site operates. Those are all things that can be helpful in strengthening these skills of inquiry that you'll be seeking to develop through your contextual ed. And then the third thing is to be deepening your skills of appreciation. Much of our seminary experience teaches us to be critical thinkers. And these are very important skills as we engage with our site. But I would also encourage you to be seeking to practice appreciation as well as the critical thinking. To think about, what are you coming to understand about the value of this site to other people? Or even, and particularly in those places where there may be practices that a site has that seem odd to you, it would be helpful in those instances to come into your site with a spirit of curiosity and learning rather than judgment. I would encourage you to be deepening those skills of appreciation as well as those skills of our critical thinking. So along with the link to this presentation in the email, you will find an attachment with several documents for you to read. The first primary one that's important is the syllabus, and we'll look at some key pieces of that in just a minute. There's a document that outlines the premises we talked about at the beginning of this presentation. There's another document that lists not only the expectations that Anna described for you as students, but also expounds upon the expectations for the sites and the supervisors. There's a document that talks about the process for putting together your learning agreement, which will be due relatively soon. And then also some documents related to spiritual practice and Sabbath keeping, which I'll be talking about in just a couple of minutes.
Great. So syllabus review highlights. So when you get your syllabus and all those wonderful documents in your email, what are you going to look at in particular? We want to make sure that you look at all of it, but these are the things that we want to highlight for you. So first of all, you only have one textbook. It looks like this. It is called Enlighten by Sung-Hee Chang and Matthew Flooding. And it is the only thing that you will need to purchase for your contextual ed semester. You will be using Blackboard, which you should be familiar with as the site where you can collect documents and information, but you'll be using the TC 801 Blackboard site this semester. And so that's the same site as was used in the fall. You've already been added to the site. So if you were to go to Blackboard right now, which you should, learn.bu.edu, and you should go to Blackboard and you should see and make sure that the TC 801 Blackboard site comes up for you. If you, for some reason, cannot access that site, please let our office know right away. because we would like to make sure that you have access to that as the semester begins. So learning agreements. Your learning agreement needs to be completed and submitted to your ITP leader by the second week of the semester. So that's going to come very quickly. And then your final version, once you have some feedback and you can make sure it's looking good, is due 2 weeks after that. So your first draft, you're needed to complete and submit that to your ITP leader by the second week of the semester. And then your final version with all the appropriate signatures and everything is due 2 weeks after that.
As part of that learning agreement, you need to include a required objective around spiritual practice or Sabbath keeping. And for that learning objective, you'll be asked to think about how to spend 2 hours of your time each week, or a tithe for those of us in the Judeo-Christian tradition may be familiar with that term, 2 hours each week in spiritual practice or Sabbath keeping. Part of the reason that we've included this objective in your learning agreement is to really nurture the habit of setting aside time for your own spiritual growth, so that you get into a rhythm of that now, if you're not already. And you may already have a practice that's working for you. And if you do, you can use that as an opportunity for some additional accountability about continuing it. You could also use this 2 hours as an opportunity for you to try something that you've been wanting to experiment with, but haven't had the opportunity to do so. And as I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, included with the email that you'll be receiving with this link, there's a few documents that can help you think about your own understanding of spiritual practice and Sabbath keeping, as well as to provide you with some ideas of how you might broaden your experience to try something new if you wish. You'll find a handout on the elements of holy rest and Sabbath keeping, which offers a broad look of the purpose and importance of Sabbath keeping, and includes a list of resources if this is a new concept for you, and provides you with some new information. You'll also receive a document called the Tree of Contemplative Practices. This is just another image for looking at the breadth of spiritual practices that are possible. It also raises some interesting questions about what makes a particular practice spiritual, or what makes something spiritual in some instances and not others, because you may see some things on that tree of contemplative practice that you wouldn't necessarily have thought about as a spiritual practice. And then there's another document called Embodying Sabbath Practice, which really invites you to reflect upon your own current practices and possibly some hoped for practices. So talking about this, using this document as a discussion opportunity with your supervisor as you're looking at your learning agreement can really offer an opportunity for some mutual sharing around spiritual practice, and perhaps around some of the items that you're curious about. And particularly, it's important to really be focusing on our spiritual practice and Sabbath keeping at this heightened continuing time of community anxiety and stress. So hopefully this initial conversation with your supervisor around this particular objective will spark some mutual accountability between the two of you around your own spiritual practice as you move through this semester. Once you have, so the other thing that's included in your syllabus, you'll see that there are a number of key assignments, primarily 2 types. One is case studies. You'll find on Blackboard a format for how to develop those written case studies that you will present one time during the semester. And then during the course of the semester, you will also be writing a number of theological reflection papers. You'll see those listed on your syllabus, and those are due the day before class, the day before your class meets. And there's some guidelines also on Blackboard about how to construct those papers. You'll also find as you look through the syllabus that there's some reading assignments. There's a few weeks where there are readings, and they are from the Enlightened book that Anna mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And then For those of you who, if you're starting your contextual ed this semester, you'll have your mid-year evaluation at the end of this semester. And so you'll see that date listed, and there's a couple of you who are wrapping up contextual ed. So you'll have your final evaluation due at that time as well. So as you're looking through the syllabus, if there are questions that you have or something's not clear, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Anastasia or myself with any questions. We're happy to help you as you move into this semester of contextual ed. We want you to be as successful with this experience as possible. Welcome.
Absolutely. And that's why we are going to end with a blessing for the new year. And even though we are kind of midway through the semester, we are at the start of a new year, 2022. And so we want to offer this blessing to you as you go forth into contextual education. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of lost gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the karak of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Amen. Go in peace.
Amen.